Welcome to the Weal Spill. This is Lachlan Rockmore, and I am your co-host of the Weal Spill with Pierre Rockmore, and this is the segment Mind to Heart. If you are new to this channel, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel so that you can get all of our upcoming videos because they're hot. They're coming in hot. But anyways, this segment is really about the things and the matters of the mind and of the heart and how those things affect your life. And also new of what I'm going to be talking about is just letting you guys in, being transparent and letting you guys know who I am, getting to know me. And so that is what this video is all about. So check it out. So this video is going to be how a horrible marriage prepared me for my current marriage, or the marriage that I'm in, and the marriage that I'm glad that I'm in and that I'm so happy to be in. You all know him. He's funny. He's charismatic. He's handsome. Yes, he is. Pierre Rockmore. And what I'm going to be talking about first, before I tell you about how that helped me in the marriage with Pierre, I have to give you a little bit about the marriage. And so first and foremost, I was young. I was really young. I was 23 when I got married, and he was 21. Yeah, and the marriage was not good. It just was not. I mean, the marriage, you know when it's bad is when you get married and you're married for 2 weeks and then you're separated after those 2 weeks for 2 months. And so, yeah, that's just how bad it was. I mean, we were talking annulment at that point, I don't know why we didn't, but I think we should have. I think it was just because of the fact that we were both in the Word, or, transitioning into the Spirit of God at that time. And I think that was the whole reason that we got married as well, because at that time, before I met him, I was in a position, if you've ever been in a transition, like you're in the middle of a situation and you're like, God, I need your help. I need you to do whatever it is that is going to get me closer to you. I want to get closer to you. And I told God, I said, please send me somebody that is going to help me get closer to you and to show me how and show me the way, because I didn't know. I just knew that he was there, and I kid you not, the next day I met my husband. At that time, yeah, I met him at that time. And we're just gonna call him, okay? We're not gonna go into detail of who he is and all that or whatever, but I met him and immediately I got attached to his mother. And his mother was my spiritual guidance at that time. And I think that was probably like the whole thing of me getting married to him, because I found God and we were in a relationship, and I was just like, if we're going to continue to be in a relationship the way that we are, we're going to have to be married. We're going to have to commit to each other, because we can no longer do the things that we were doing and be walking in God, and then yet we're failing in our flesh. So that was the whole point, the reasoning behind why we got married at such a young age. And so the things that you do to please your flesh, right? The things you do to please your flesh. And that was I was pleasing my flesh, and thought that was the way that I should do it. So it wasn't the right way, but At that time I thought it was. And so we were married, like I said, we were married for 2 weeks, separated for 2 months. Then we got back together after 2 months, and things were, he was, at the beginning, he was really nice. He was really good. He was really kind to me. He would, bring me flowers. He would, just write me poems and, all types of things like that. But I think there was a time when I felt that he was too sensitive for me. I don't know, please don't, I don't know, I was young. And so I think that's what made him switch to the point of I gotta be, I'm gonna be like this and I'm gonna be like that. So that's where all the controlling came in, and when and he went hard on it. He went hard on just being controlling. It was to the point to where when we would, for clothes or whatever, we want to get clothes, I didn't buy my clothes. He bought my clothes for me, and he bought them at least 2 sizes too big. So yeah, I did. I remember I was talking to one of my friend girls who knew me back then, and she said, Lachlan, she said, do you remember when I think we were at Kohl's, and she said that you saw this dress that you liked, and in order for you to put it in your basket, you said that you would have to ask him if you could do that and if you could buy it. And I was told her, I said, I really don't remember. My mind, sometimes I just eliminate some things out of my mind that just doesn't need to be there, And so, yeah, I was like, wow, that's how bad it was. Because I tell you now, that just was not my personality. That was, before I met him, that was not my personality. I don't want to say submissive, but I wasn't that of a doormat. I wasn't that type of girl at all. And so, yeah, it was that bad. And also, I think it was physically abusive. It was physically abusive on my end. I'm not gonna say that it was all his fault. I'm not here to say that. I'm just saying that the marriage was just bad. It was physically abusive on my part. And the reason why it was because he knew how to push my buttons. And it was like he would just push my buttons and push my buttons to make me get to that point. You know what I mean? To make me hit him or want to, hurt him. And I was like, I've never seen that side of me before. Just to the point where you want to hurt someone. And that's how bad it was, It was just that bad. And then he was verbally abusive to me. He would tell me that I was not a good mother, that I wasn't a good wife, and things like that. When you hear those things over and over again and they're being told to you and nobody else is there to defend you or to say, no, that's not true or anything like that, and you're not verbal or afraid to say things, and that's constantly going into your brain about you're just not good. And when you hear that enough that you're not good, then it's kind of like, well, what is my point of living? What's my point of being here? And so at that point, there were times that I didn't want to live. I didn't. I remember taking pills because I didn't want to live, because I felt like I was worthless. I felt like I had no value, and then there was a point when I couldn't conceive. Then on top of that, but then I do remember, because I was so much in the Word at that time, I do remember God profoundly and clearly telling me that you are going to have a son, and his name is going to be Jeremiah. He told me that 2 years before I had my son. So that is one of the great things that came out of this marriage. But in that pregnancy, that pregnancy was horrible. It was horrible, because not only did I not have his affection, or I felt like he didn't care, it was to the point that I was sick. I was sick through the whole pregnancy if I didn't have medication. And so I was diagnosed with hyperemesis, a case of hyperemesis. And so that means that I was back and forth, to the hospital because I couldn't even keep water down. But I kid you not, I would have to drive myself to the hospital, pulling over, throwing up, getting back in the car, driving, pulling over, throwing up, getting in the car, driving to the hospital, to the ER, so that I could get some help. It was horrible. I mean, I remember at that time we only had one car, and they admitted me in the hospital. And instead of him coming up to see me, he came and got the car and just left me there, like, oh, didn't know you were in the hospital, kind of thing, But anyways, it was bad. It was bad. And what made me come to the point to say that I was done? And this went on for 5 years, y'all. 5 years, 5.5 years. So what made me say that I was done? I remember one day, I can't specifically pinpoint the actual reasoning of what was said and why it was said, but I asked him a question about something, and he told me that he didn't have to answer me because I was just his wife. It seems like I just needed to hear that. I just needed to hear that I'm just your wife and that means nothing to you. So I didn't take that well. I did not. My hand did go across his face, But after that, I made the decision because this is when he was still telling me how I wasn't a good parent. I wasn't, a good wife. I think it was a Thursday, and I got paid that day. I didn't come home from work. I did not. I did not come home from work. I went to a hotel. I got me a room. I went and got me some clothes. I went and got my hair done. I went and got my nails done. And I felt like a whole different person. When I tell you guys how I felt so free for that moment, because I didn't have to rely on someone else to make a decision for me. That was my breaking point. I didn't come home. So what happened was I wrote him a letter, and I told him, I was like, if you feel that and I had a daughter at this time. My daughter was she was probably like 10 at that time. And so I didn't tell anybody where I went. I just didn't. I just abandoned everybody. And I'm ashamed of that because I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my kids. I didn't take my kids with me because I felt I wasn't good enough, And that was what I wrote him in the letter. I'm like, if you feel that you're better of a parent than I am, then you take the children and you raise them yourself. But that was not my plan. That's not what I was gonna do, because my plan and what I did is that I went to a hotel. I stayed the night. I went to work. I got off early to go pick up my kids. I got off of work. I went to the house, and then that is when my mom and dad was there when I got there, and asking me where I was, and I just told them, what happened or whatever. And so my mom said, well, you're leaving. Let's go. And so I did. I left, but I didn't take my son. He wouldn't let me take my son. No, he wouldn't let me take my son. But eventually, I got because he couldn't do it. So eventually I got my son, and that was that. Like from that point on, he couldn't take care of the apartment. So the apartment was still in our name after about a month or so. And so what I did is that I moved back to that apartment, and I got the locks changed, took his name off the lease and everything, told the apartments the situation and everything. And I stayed there until the remainder of the lease. And once that lease was over, then I moved back. I was living in Carrollton at the time, and so then I moved back to Dallas. And that's the story. Like it's just that what I learned from that is 2 years later, after that is when I met Pierre. Yeah, that's when I met him, and that's the whole story about him seeing me in the club and coming up to me telling me that I'm his wife and all that or whatever. And But we didn't get together at that time. We got together in like 2009 because I think that was like 2007. But yeah, that's when I met him, and it was different. It was really different. I was really different, and God really changed me in that. Like he molded me in that situation. He was molding me for Pierre, because let me tell y'all something, okay? Pierre is not an easy feat, okay? I love him with all my heart, but he is not an easy feat, and I thank him for that challenge. I thank him for that. I'm strong from being broken. God had to rebuild me. He rebuilt me with his hands, and he purged me, he trimmed me, he dug me, he plowed me, and here I am today as a new creature in Christ, because remember, I was in God at that time. And I'll tell you guys a story about after when I left, how I didn't want to hear anything about God, and how I became and got into Buddhism and, and all that stuff, which I'm not anymore. I'm a woman of God and a Christian. But I will go into detail about how that story about how after I left him, and in that time period of when I left him and when I met Pierre. But just with the fact of that marriage, I felt like I was a doormat. I felt like I didn't have a spine. I felt like I was being controlled mentally. I felt broken. And with being broken, the only thing that God can do with broken pieces is put them together, put them back together. And he didn't put me back together the same. He put some extra pieces in there. You know what I mean? Some extra pieces of himself. He gave me a new spine. He gave me a new way of looking at situations. He gave me a new way of handling situations. A new way of controlling myself in a uncontrolled environment, if you will. If there is any. He helped me go to another level in him without me even realizing it. Because I was so in the Word at that time, and I was so into just listening to him and having dreams and interpreting my dreams and things like that. And now I see those dreams coming to pass. And it's just so amazing how there's things that God told you years ago that are now you're in the place to receive what he's telling you. And so, but yeah, God just had to just break me down in that relationship so he can prepare me for the one that I'm in right now, that is awesome, that is wonderful, and that God is taking care of me in this relationship. Like it's awesome, and I can't complain. And my husband is awesome, and I can't complain, and he's good to me, and he treats me well the best way that he knows how. So, but I think that we were totally meant to be together, and I'll explain in another video of how when I say I felt like we were meant to be with each other, because everything is like timing is everything. But before I go, I just want to leave an encouraging word to somebody that if you are in a situation as I was in, remember that it's going to take you to be tired to get out of a situation. It's going to take your strength. And at that time, I had some kind of strength to say, I'm done. I don't know where that strength came from. I don't know, but it was like, I'm done. I'm done with this. And that's how you have to be, like, I'm done. I can do better. I can do bad all by myself, right? I can do better than what I'm doing right now. And so I just encourage you, if you're in a situation, man or female, husband or wife, I'm just saying, if you're in a situation like that, you don't have to be miserable. You don't have to live miserable. But what you can do is change your situation. And the way that you're going to change your situation is you have to change your mind. And whatever is in your mind is going to plant in your heart, and it's going to exhibit in your life. This is a mind to heart I thank you for joining me, and I'll see you guys next week.